God. Okay, we're ready to begin this week, obviously. Okay.
Let's just dive right in.
That's the most awkward beginning we've ever done.
We're talking about Harry Styles versus Niall Horan. I'm Team Harry. Brigitta's Team
I like
Niall.
Niall.
So, anyways, but this
No.
is
Their music.
their music.
Right. Okay.
This is a perfect lead-in to the pop section.
Yes.
So let's dive right in. So, the first is that the Oscar nominations were announced this week. This is like big deal. This is like Super Bowl Hollywood style. So, let me just run through a couple things real quick. The Shape of Water, Guillermo del Toro's movie, leads the nominations with 13. Dunkirk is second with 8. So, yay, Dunkirk.
I watched that this weekend,
What'd
by
you
the
think?
way. It was an hour and 45 minutes of, oh no, are you for real? Are you really serious right now? And also, what is going on?
Really?
Well, there's not a lot of dialogue, so you
not.
kind of have to piece together the story by yourself and kind of figure out what's going on and
Plus
who's
the
what.
3
and,
storylines.
Yeah, the different story. Anyway, it's a good movie, but it's just like... And then you're also always going, oh no, you're going to die now. Like every time a plane flies, oh no, another oh no. Anyway, it was a good movie though.
Interesting.
I didn't like it.
Emily
didn't
hated
like
it. Like, legitimately hated it.
I hated it.
But, see, I'm a huge Christopher Nolan fan, and so you just kind of have to, like, understand his style and, like, the way he does things, and I thought it was beautiful how, like, the 3 storylines, although they were, like, on different timelines, like, all converged at one point, and it was just beautiful. It all came together like that. Anyways, so, a few interesting notes from the Oscar nominations. Meryl Streep is nominated again. This is her 21st Oscar nomination.
Didn't she break her own record?
Yeah, she broke her own record. So she is like far and away the most nominated actress. Not the most Oscar nominated person, because now let's get to that. So John Williams was nominated for his 51st nomination.
Oh, well earned.
Yes.
Well deserved.
Well earned.
For The Post? Or for... What was he nominated for?
I think it was
Was it Star Wars?
Don't quote me on that. You look it up.
I'm looking it up.
But yeah, John Williams has his 51st nomination. But, fun fact, he is not the most Oscar-nominated person. Do you know who that is?
You're asking the wrong person.
It's actually someone pretty well known who's no longer alive. Yeah, I'll quit asking you what's in my pocket question. It is Walt Disney.
Oh.
Walt Disney holds the records for the most Oscar-nominated person, and that is 59. So, John Williams well on his way, and the rate at which John Williams works, I'm sure he'll probably get there soon. But yeah, Walt
How many
Disney.
did Walt Disney have? Sorry.
59.
I was
And John
reading
Williams has
about
51.
John Williams.
So
John Williams received it for The Last Jedi. You were right.
okay, for Last Jedi, very good. Also, Greta Gerwig was nominated for Best Director to the relief of many a person across the pop culture realm.
Yeah, she's
So
the
that
one who
was
directed
awesome.
Lady Bird.
And she is only, get this, she's only the 5th woman to ever be nominated for Best Director at the Oscars. Only the 5th. Isn't that crazy? Mm-hmm. Also, Jordan Peele was nominated for Get Out, and so that was also really good.
That's the horror film that's based on race relations.
Yeah. So
I haven't seen it yet, but I
haven't either, and I don't know. I don't do horror either, so
in any way.
But it might not be like, I don't know. Jury's still out for that for me.
know.
But
I saw a clip from it.
It
and
was
still
great
like,
to see those 2 directors nominated, unlike the Golden Globes, which is all white and male. It was nice to see them actually do something. Another groundbreaking nomination. So Rachel Morrison was nominated for cinematography for Mudbound, and she's the first woman to be nominated in that category. So that was cool.
Right.
And Netflix. So Mudbound is on Netflix movie, and
right.
this since Mudbound received some major nominations. This is the first time Netflix has broken into like major nominations. Like Mary J. Blige was nominated for Best Supporting Actress. They got Best Cinematography, stuff like that, Best Song. So this is the first time that like a non-studio film has made it into the big nominations. So that's notable. Also,
Handmaid's Tale broke this for the TV show category, right?
Yes.
Because it's on Hulu. So now this is different. This is movie.
This is film. Yeah.
Cool.
So we're starting to see the influence of like the streaming services.
Right.
And, you know, with Apple and Netflix starting to get into the content game, it'll be interesting to see if, like, we start seeing more of these.
Apple and Amazon?
And Facebook.
Facebook?
Yeah, Facebook is starting to, like, do content.
Why?
I don't know.
Why?
I don't know.
Okay.
So,
all right, well.
And then the last note on the Oscar nominations, there was some evidence of the Me Too movement, and, like, the Harvey Weinstein era was evident because James Franco, who, like, right after he won his Golden Globe, some allegations of, like, sexual assault or harassment came out against him.
Yeah.
So a lot of people were wondering, like, is he going to be nominated, blah, blah, blah. He was not nominated for an Oscar, which is a very notable admission because... Omission. Excuse me. Omission. Because he had, like, a lot of momentum going into the award seasons. And also, Christopher Plummer was nominated for Best Supporting Actor. It's notable because he refilmed all of Kevin Spacey's scenes in All the Money in the World when those allegations came out against Kevin Spacey. So,
and he did it in, like, they did it, like, a month before release. Like,
it was, like, super crazy turnaround for them to reshoot all these things and still get it out.
Yep.
Yeah.
Also, the dude who is supposed to be presenting the Best Actress award at the Oscars,
Casey Affleck.
Casey Affleck. He was, before the Oscars last year, he was accused of sexual assault, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so it was a big thing, and usually the Best Supporting Actor from the previous year's Oscar would present the Best Supporting Actress award, and he's not going to the Oscars at all. Right. So he will not be doing that.
So he was Best Actor.
That's what.
For Best Actor. You said supporting, but.
Oh, did I say supporting?
Yeah.
Sorry,
Anyways,
I was still thinking about Christopher Plummer.
It still stands. So yeah, usually that's how they do it traditionally at the Oscars. So it'll be interesting to see. I wonder if they'll have, like, I don't know what they'll do for Best Actress. Wonder if they'll, like, capitalize on, like, the Me Too movement and have somebody who's been notable, like Ashley Judd or I don't know who else has been big in that movement. Present that. I don't know.
Maybe they'll have an activist.
Yeah, an activist, like the creator of the hashtag #MeToo or somebody. Like so, I don't know. Anyways, the Oscars are on March 4th. Fun fact, do you know why they're so late this year?
No.
It's because of the Olympics.
Well, that makes sense.
Usually the Oscars are in February, but out of deference for the Olympics and NBC, they push back the ceremony in the years of the Winter Olympics.
Interesting.
So it's not till March 4th. So, okay.
Speaking of the Olympics, they start in, like, a week.
Oh, yes. So excited. Also, I discovered a new Olympics podcast from NBC. It's called The Podium.
Oh, okay.
Have you heard about it?
No.
They, like, talk about all things Olympics. They're talking about, like, American athletes to watch, like, history of the sports. They also have, like, 2 or 3 episodes that were, like, all about Korea and, like, the geopolitical background of, like,
that's cool.
The Olympics being held in Korea. So if you're interested in any of that, go listen to The Podium by NBC. It's a joint venture between Vox Media and NBC Sports.
Oh, that's a good...
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, so, and they're supposed to do a lot of things leading up to and during the Olympics, like daily highlights and stuff like that, athlete profiles and stuff like that. So,
that's cool.
Go see that if you're interested in that, like me, because I love the Olympics. Okay.
That's an understatement.
Moving on. So, Disney announced this week the casting, or I should say voice casting, of The Incredibles 2 movie, which is exciting. It comes out on June 15th, 2018. So, real quick, the mom, Elastigirl, Dad, Mr. Incredible are the same actors from the movie. Dash is not the same actor as the first, since obviously it's been 15 years. The voice actor who did it is obviously much older and couldn't sound as young, but the girl who played Violet is the same actress.
Yeah.
So, and then Samuel L. Jackson is back. Edna Mode is by Brad Bird, the same guy, the director who did it, the first movie. And then there's a couple new characters. Winston Devor and Evelyn Devor are like these rich people who have lead a telecommunications company.
Okay.
And there's also an ambassador, and there's another superhero named Void. So, yeah. Kind of interesting. So
that'll be fun to see, I guess.
That'll become June.
Okay. All right, so the next thing is about two musical artists.
This was big. Two legendary 20th century touring music artists, had some big announcements this week. So, Neil Diamond announced that he's retiring from touring effective immediately. So he's had run into a lot of health problems.
Didn't he announce a Parkinson's diagnosis?
I can't remember. He announced some diagnosis.
I'm pretty sure it was Parkinson's.
Yeah, so he's in the middle of touring in Australia and New Zealand, and he canceled those shows and just he's done touring. Just so sad. And I know a lot of people love him. He's a really great performer and has had a really long, prestigious career. So
yeah, it's Parkinson's.
Is it Parkinson's?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So kind of sad to see that come to an end. Also, the other one is Elton John. He announced he's going to be retiring from touring, but he's doing it in a different way. He's going out with a bang. He's going on one last final tour that will last 3 years, and he'll perform on 300 dates.
Oh my gosh.
He will do 300 concerts over the next 3 years and go out with a bang.
That's 100 touring days per year. That's a lot.
Isn't that a lot? Holy cow. So, but Elton John has never been one to be, what's the word? To be muted
ordinary.
or held back.
Yeah.
He's always been one to be flamboyant and flashy and out there.
Yeah.
So, he apparently wants to spend more time with his family, which, okay, good for him.
Good for him.
But he says he's still going to write and record music. He's just not going to tour anymore.
Oh, okay.
So, and Elton John has also had a very long and prestigious career.
Has.
He, I was reading, in a span of 7 or 8 years, he released 10 albums. And I was like,
Ugh.
holy
That's
crap.
a lot.
Yeah, so, good for him. Okay, moving on. Phantom of the Opera celebrated its 30th year anniversary on Broadway this week.
That's exciting.
And it is the longest running show in Broadway by a long shot. No show was even close, and because Phantom has been running continuously on Broadway since the late 80s.
Wow.
Since 1988.
Yeah.
30 years. So, wow. They had a big ceremony. They had Andrew Lloyd Webber and Sarah Brightman and Harold Prince and Cameron McIntosh, and yeah. So, good for them.
That's really cool.
Emily and I are going to see Phantom on tour this summer, and I'm so excited. It'll be so fun. So good for them.
Moving on to movie news. The Black Panther new trailer dropped today, and I am in love with it, and I'm ready for the movie to be out. Moving rapidly along, Stu and Emily saw The Post this week, and I saw it last week. What'd you think?
I liked it. I thought it was a great period piece.
Yeah.
And, of course, I love Meryl Streep and Tom Hanks. They were fabulous, as always. And did you know they've never been in a film together until now?
Isn't that shocking?
That is so crazy, because they're both such amazing actors. Yeah. So that was cool that they were finally got to work together.
Right. And I just loved everything. I loved everything about it. The soundtrack is just beautiful. It's John Williams. It's amazing. And then you have, so many of my favorite actors. I mean, Meryl Streep, Tom Hanks, obviously, but also Bradley Whitford was in it.
Yeah.
And I love Bradley Whitford.
Me too. He's great.
And it was just, you have this story that I don't think a lot of us know about.
Right.
And all of it was coinciding at once. That when the Vietnam Papers were coming out, Katharine Graham was trying to take the company public, and if it had backfired, she would have lost everything. And she was the first woman to run a newspaper in modern America, and she, the New York Times had already had this injunction placed upon them so that they couldn't publish anything, and the Washington Post wasn't a national news source, it was a local news source.
I didn't realize that.
I didn't either.
Until I was because the Washington Post now is,
yeah.
right up there with the New York Times. They are the two prominent national newspapers. But at the time, it was just the New York Times.
Right.
I didn't know that the Post was just some Washington area regional newspaper.
Yeah, I didn't know that either.
So that was shocking. But obviously, the events of the Pentagon Papers and, of course, Watergate with Carl Bernstein and Bob Woodward, that really raised the profile. Mm-hmm. This movie has really put me into the mood of, like, wanting to learn more about the Nixon-Watergate era. Yeah. Because, so I watched the Post the next day. I rented and watched the movie about Mark Felt, who was Deep Throat. He's played by Liam Neeson. It came out last year. Familiar. It wasn't, like, super...
It sounds so familiar.
It didn't make a big splash on the scene, but he was the Deep Throat, the source for the Washington Post. Yeah. And he was the number 2 at the FBI, so that was really interesting. And I've got on hold at the library the book All the President's Men, which Carl Bernstein and Bob Woodward, like, chronicled their steps in uncovering the Watergate scandal and reporting on that. So I've just got this fascination with, like, the Nixon-Watergate era right now. It's such a fascinating time in our history to research and get into, so I'm just kind of all in on that era right now. So
I'm gonna see if I can find it, but I was reading something from one of the writers of the Post, and she was talking about how, like, this was the last piece she was gonna write. She didn't feel like she could go anywhere. She didn't think she was gonna get anywhere with her writing, and she wrote the Post, and it was when Oscar noms came out, and she was like, she was just so shocked that, like, it had been nominated for, was it an Oscar or an Academy Award?
They're the same thing.
They're the same thing?
Yeah.
What?
So
okay, I know nothing.
So the Academy refers to the National Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences.
Why do they have 2 names?
That's the group that puts on the Academy Awards, because they're put on by the Academy, but they're nicknamed the Oscars. So they're the same thing. Why? I don't know. I do not know.
I know you don't know, but I'm gonna keep asking why, because I don't get it. Anyway, she was talking about how, like, she's just so like, it's so amazing to her that that 2 years or a year later, or whatever it is, that her piece is now nominated, and how you should never give up on your dreams. And it was just like this kind of really cool moment, because it was I really can't find it. This is terrible. This woman who was about to give up, and there are so many stories like that within movies like this, and within the movie sphere. Like Kelly Marie Tran, who plays Rose in The Last Jedi, she was, like, about to give up on acting when she landed the role of Rose. Really? Of Rose, yeah. So I'm not gonna be able to find this, but yeah. So it was just cool to read her thoughts about that. Okay, next thing is that Ruth Bader Ginsburg, she's on the Supreme Court.
Also known as Notorious RGB.
Yes. She she was at Sundance because CNN debuted a documentary of her life that she was also in. So she's 84 years old. She's been battling the women's right movement for time out of mind. Like, she's done a lot of really amazing things. So she was sitting down in an interview with one of the NPR reporters. Now I can't think of her name.
Nina Totenberg.
Yep. And she was talking about a couple of things. She first commented on Kate McKinnon's portrayal of her on Saturday Night Live, which, by the way, if you haven't seen those sketches, they're so funny. I watched one of them again last night when I was taking a break from studying, and was just like, I just love it. She does what she calls Ginsburns, and it just is so wonderful. And the oversized emergency packet, and I mean, it's pure comedy gold. It's amazing. But she said that she really liked Kate McKinnon, the actress who portrays her. She didn't even know her name. The actress who portrays her. And then
Kate McKinnon is great.
Oh, Kate McKinnon. All things
considered.
Also, sidebar. So, I am convinced that Kate McKinnon can play anyone in this administration, because this week she played Robert Mueller on SNL, and it was amazing. Like, that they added so much to make those jowls, but it was just so cool. She's played Sessions, she's played Kellyanne, she's played Mueller.
Hillary.
She's played Hillary. Hillary's not technically part of this.
Hillary during the election.
But she's played so many people. I'm convinced she could play anyone. Anyway, and then RGB turned to commenting on the Me Too movement. She said it's about time. She said that she, like, women of her generation, she called them women of her vintage, which I just really loved. Women of my vintage all know what sexual harassment is. We just didn't have a name for it, she said, and she said it's about time. She said that there was a time when she was having a chemistry test and she asked the professor that she was worried about or whatever, and she asked the professor, and the professor offered to give her a practice test, and so she did, and took the practice test, and then she gets to class, and she's sitting down for the real test, and it's the same exact test, and she went to him and said, I'm having none of this. Like, she knew what he wanted, and she said, you can't, like, that's not okay. And that was the end of that for her. But she's been battling for, like, women's rights and stuff like that for so long that she's just an amazing woman. And then she also, so a lot of people have been speculating, like, she's getting up there in years and she doesn't seem to be as mobile as she used to be, and all of that stuff. But she's, like, kind of sitting it out, right? She's hired staff till 2020. So, kind of making a statement. But anyway, she's, like, amazing, and her interview is really wonderful. But that's the last thing. That was, like, kind of a bridge between pop and politics. So we'll move on to politics. When we last spoke, it was Friday night, and we had just witnessed, I think while we were recording, the government hadn't been able to pass the continuing resolution that would keep the government open. They hadn't been able to solve the problem. They still had 2 more hours to figure it out, but they didn't end up figuring it out, and the government shut down for Saturday, Sunday, and a majority, well, it was shut down all day Monday, but they opened it up at the end of the day, which is not useful. Right. So it was shut down until Tuesday morning. Well, they tried to work things out. This is actually shorter than the shutdown that took place in 2013. That one was a 10-day shutdown. But this one ended when they were able to compromise a little bit and come to a 3-week continuing resolution that keeps the government open until February 8th. And it funded CHIP for another 6 years. So it did accomplish at least one thing. Well, 2 things, technically. But this means that the immigration debate is still on the table, and they still have to solve it for when March comes along. And so we'll get to that a little bit later with specific note to the immigration, because there's some new stuff from there too. But all in all, it was a pretty short shutdown. There was a lot of blaming. Like, there was the right was calling it the Schumer shutdown, the left was calling it the Trump shutdown. There was a lot of blame game going on and not a lot of fixing, which was frustrating from the Utah perspective, looking at Washington, D.C., going, what are you doing? Mm-hmm. Anything else we need to add on that?
No. Did you mention how it only funds the government through February 8th?
Yeah.
Okay. So we could potentially be doing this whole shutdown thing in a couple weeks from now.
My friend is out there right now interning, and I just like I feel bad. Like, I'm sorry you're doing this right now. It's a pain. Like, they didn't go to work on Monday. Apparently though, Trump saw a stock photo during the shutdown. He saw a stock photo of one of the monuments where there were cones out. Because technically the National Mall is a national park, so you have to have. I mean, it's open, but like, there are certain things that are closed and whatever when it's not business hours. And so he had apparently seen this picture of one of the monuments with cones around it or something like that, and he sent an aide down to check it out just to make sure that it wasn't open, but it was a stock photo from 2013. So that was interesting.
Oh my. Okay.
Yep. Okay.
So next thing, Vice President Mike Pence was in the Middle East this week. He went to Jerusalem, Israel, and he stated about Israel something interesting, that the embassy will be moved to Jerusalem by 2019, which is next year, which is like way sooner than anybody had ever seen. Tillerson in the State Department said it would like be at least 3 or 4 years out.
Nobody put a date on it yet.
So, and because to make an embassy you have to do a lot of security renovations and upgrades, and apparently the building in Jerusalem is not up to up to standards. So nobody really knows how they're going to make this happen so quickly when before all fingers pointed to at least 3 years down the road, at least. So I've heard some speculation that it will just be a temporary embassy until they retrofit. I don't know. So, but that was really weird to hear Pence say that, because Pence is not one to speculate or give rumors or.
That was interesting.
So
also, when he spoke in the Knesset, the Israeli Congress thing, there was a whole bunch of legislature. Thank you. There were a bunch of MPs that protested. They held up signs and protested his speech, and then were escorted out of the building. So, and the Palestinians refused to talk to him while he was there. Because, okay, so this is something to think about. So even if Trump were impeached or something, if his whole administration were the only way that I can see us getting out of a Trump presidency without a Pence presidency is if everybody is indicted on Russia problems, right? Everybody is affected by this, and it goes deeper than just the president. But what that means is that if Trump were to be impeached, or if Trump were to have the 25th Amendment enacted on him, then Pence would be president. And some things would change, and some things we wouldn't have some of the erratic behavior that we're dealing with. But Pence is he is very radical in a lot of ways, and Jerusalem is one of them. He is very much a Jerusalem supporter, and so people are saying oh, if we had a rational president, or if we had a different president, if we didn't have Trump as president, then we would not be debating this topic of Jerusalem being called the capital. And I don't think that's the case at all, because Vice President Pence feels so strongly about Jerusalem and about its position in the Israeli state. So, well, food for thought there. Okay, so we have a whole host of updates on the Mueller probe. First we'll do interviews. Yes. So last week Bannon was interviewed not by the Mueller probe, but by it was one of the committees in Congress. I can't remember which one, but he was in there for it was 11 hours that he was in there for an interview, and they got almost nothing out of him. The administration had asked him not to say anything with respect to the transition or with respect to his time in the White House. So basically, he had a gag order on him about everything. If he were to go before the Mueller probe, which they're in current negotiations to do that, there would be very little. He probably would not be able to pull that kind of move on them.
Another interview that was done recently was Jeff Sessions, the Attorney General, was interviewed by Mueller's probe, which is an interesting signal, I guess is the word I'm looking for. An interesting signal, because Sessions is the first cabinet member to be interviewed by Trump, which now we're
Mueller.
By Mueller. Yeah. Excuse me. And so they're starting to get closer, and
that's what people are saying this is indicating. This is getting closer and closer to Trump, which means it's probably getting closer and closer to wrapping up.
The rumors are, so earlier this week there were rumors that Mueller wanted to interview Trump.
Right.
And speculation abound, and then finally Trump was asked, would you speak to Mueller? And he said, yeah, I'm looking forward to speaking with him.
Yeah, and then his lawyer walked it back.
Yeah, Ty Cobb totally walked it back. So Trump, in his freewheeling style, was I'll talk to him. Sure, I'll do it under oath. There's no
pollution, I'll do it, whatever. And then, so he does that in a press conference or something like that?
It was an impromptu
No, that was... There were two. So he said it, and then Ty Cobb said, walked it back. And then, 2 nights ago, there was a press grouping. Right. It was last night. There was a press grouping in the Chief of Staff's office they were going to have an off-the-record conversation about what was going on in the White House about immigration. And the president walked in on his way out to Davos and had this impromptu conversation. Then they asked him about it again, and he said, yeah, I'm sure we're willing to go on the record as long as, he said something about within my lawyer's discretion or something like that. I can't remember exactly what it was, but it's just this funny flip-flop. He's all the way willing to go in front of the special counsel, but not quite. So, whatever. And then okay, so then last summer it comes out literally on my drive over here, it was a news alert that I got. I was listening to NPR, and they were saying that, and the New York Times drops it first, but NPR was saying that last summer, summer 2017, Trump moved to fire Mueller, who's the special prosecutor, right, that's investigating the Russia investigation. Like, let's get our facts straight here. He threatened to fire him, and the only thing that stopped him was that his White House counsel, Dan McGahn, threatened to step down, to quit his job if Trump went through with that. And so he walked that back pretty quickly, but that didn't ever make it outside of the White House. So that's a little crazy. That's a little worrisome. And like that he wanted to fire the person that was looking into him.
You know, all this, like, my renewed interest in the Nixon Watergate era has a lot of eerie parallels to the Trump era.
Yeah.
And a lot of what Nixon tried to do was lean on the Justice Department and fire people and really stick his hands into the FBI. Massacre. Yeah. And in the Mark Felt movie specifically, Mark Felt keeps saying to the FBI director, to the Justice Department, like, the FBI is neutral. Like, we don't take orders from the White House.
Yeah.
And that is totally, it was true then, and it is true now.
Yeah.
The FBI, the Justice Department, the FBI specifically, is supposed to be true to the rule of law. They don't answer to the president, they answer to the law. Oh. And so firing Mueller under the Justice Department would just be so catastrophic to the Constitution, to the rule of law, to the way we do things in this country. And that is why Don McGahn threatened to resign, because he realized that would be so bad. That would be so detrimental to the presidency, to the Justice Department, and just the way that we run things in this country.
Yeah.
So I applaud Don McGahn for, like, having the guts to stand up to the president and say, no, this is not okay. Because that would just... I don't even know what would happen. I know a lot of members of Congress have said, like, if Trump fires Mueller, that is a red line.
Yeah.
Like, I'm sure there would be uproar, and Trump would totally regret it if he did go through with that.
Well, and the other
he's probably realized that by now.
Yeah, you would hope. I had another thought about this, and I can't remember what it was now. Shoot. Well, it was that the NPR Politics podcast pointed out last week, somebody on there, I can't remember who it was, pointed out that Robert Mueller is actually a Republican. So that's what makes this even more surprising, is that he identifies as a Republican. And so, like, the partisan fight against him and the partisan pushback, especially from Trump, is even more surprising, because he's very well respected he was before this probe. He still is, like, among most circles, but there's still a lot of, like, before this probe, you wouldn't have had a single congressman, like, bad-mouthing Robert Mueller, because he was such a stand-up guy. Like, Marine, FBI director, longest-serving FBI director, because more than one.
With the exception of
J. Edgar Hoover. But J. Edgar Hoover was, like, the crazy man who started the FBI and wouldn't let go of power. Like, I'm for real. That's not a joke. He really was. He had a stranglehold on that position. But besides J. Edgar Hoover, Robert Mueller, who was not a crazy person, is the longest serving FBI director and was kept on by several presidents of different parties. I mean, he's just respected across the board. And with this probe, like, so many people have turned against him. It's surprising that you would see that from people in his own party, with the party he identifies with. And he is a Republican investigating a Republican president, which I think you would need in this particular presidency, because then it doesn't look like a Democrat targeting a Republican. But even then, they've managed to make, like, a big deal out of this, and a big deal out of the Mueller probe. Okay. Moving on from Mueller probe. So, the next thing is France.
Yes. So, it was reported this week that Emmanuel Macron, president of France, has been invited for the first state visit of the Trump administration.
Wow.
And that is supposed to... They haven't nailed down a date. Sarah Huckabee Sanders did confirm that this is going to happen, but they haven't nailed down a date. But it's supposed to happen April or something. So, in the spring. And it's interesting because most presidents, the past few presidents, and it's tradition that they do a state visit within their first year of office. So it's interesting that Trump has really held off and waited so long to do a state visit. And if you know, a state visit is a big ceremonious honor. There's a big arrival ceremony on the South Lawn. And then, of course, there's a big state dinner, which is like a huge event. And like they invite celebrities and members of the administration. And state visits are a big deal. And so...
Didn't he visit with the Norwegian Prime Minister recently? Was she different?
Yes, but that wasn't a state visit. There's like working visits, and Trump has had a lot of those.
Okay, I was like, I swear a lot of people have visited.
Right. So we need to make the distinction here. There's a state visit, which is like the pomp and circumstance, the ceremonial. We like pull out all the gold and the trimmings, and
that makes sense.
There's like a 21-gun salute, all that stuff, and then there's just a working visit, which they just meet them like at the North Portico or wherever, and they just meet, maybe have a press conference, and that's it. So he's had a lot of those. The Norwegian Prime Minister came recently. Macron has come. Did Macron come? No, he didn't meet Macron here. Theresa May has come. Angela Merkel. Lots of the King of Jordan. Like lots of leaders have come to the White House, but there hasn't been a state visit.
Okay, that makes more sense.
Yeah, so there's a distinction between when for heads of state travel, if it's like a working visit or a state visit. Also on the state visit front, it has long. When Theresa May first visited the White House early last year, she invited Trump to a formal state visit to the UK, which is put on by the Queen, of course, because she's the head of state. But it hasn't happened, and like there's been no news and no announcement. It's been over a year now, and of course Trump has kind of bristled with May recently over the anti-Muslim tweets that he retweeted and stuff. But Trump visited with May in Davos today, and they said that they're working out the details to have a state visit and that it's still on for later this year. So we'll see if that actually happens. Okay, that's all for that. Moving on.
Okay, so there was a school shooting on Wednesday, I want to say. No, it was on Tuesday. It was on the 23rd in a Kentucky high school. 2 students were killed. They were both 15, and this is the 11th school shooting in 2018. Okay, we are on day 25 of 2018, and there have already been 11 school shootings.
There was one in Texas recently,
and like the surprising thing to me was that I heard about the Kentucky one, but I hadn't heard about any of the others. Like. It's become so commonplace now that this isn't something that makes my news alerts unless something. Well, I'm assuming people didn't die in the other ones, but I don't know because I haven't looked at those, right? But it's just like this big thing that like, what are we actually doing?
Right. I have a good caveat on that. In one of the White House press briefings this week, Peter Alexander of NBC News asked Sarah Huckabee Sanders, after Las Vegas, the president said, like, now's not a time for policy. Now's not a time to talk about this. And Las Vegas was what, in October of last year? It's been a good 3 or 4 months. It's been a good couple of months. I think it was October. It's been a good couple of months, right? And so Peter Alexander said, so what have you done since? Like, what are you doing to prevent this? And Sarah Huckabee Sanders did her typical, like, answer, non-answer, which she, like, rattled off a lot of things, like, we're talking to leaders, we're looking at the issues, blah, 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 which basically translates to they haven't done anything.
Well, and didn't she also, like, accuse him... Was it him that she accused of saying that the president was at fault for this shooting?
I can't remember. Not that I
There was...
recall.
I'm going to find it, because there was...
have been. I just remember him pressing her on, like, what has the administration done? What has the president done? And she, like, tried to give an answer, but really it translated into they haven't done anything. And... it's so frustrating because we always go through this cycle.
Yeah.
After every school shooting, we're always like, get all riled up. We're like, we need to do something. We need to protect our kids. And then it always falls apart. Like, we can never get our crap together and do something about it. I mean, I thought for sure that after Las Vegas there was going to be a ban on bump stocks, but that didn't even happen. I mean, even the NRA supported that, which is like... so astronomically a huge deal.
Everything.
Yeah. I thought even for sure that was going to happen, and that didn't. So it's like, what can we even do anymore? It's frustrating.
Okay, so she did. accused Alexander. So
oh,
I
it
found
was Peter Alexander?
Yeah, it was
Okay.
Alexander. So he had
I
pressed her and
must have
pressed her and pressed her on this, and he asked again whether Trump would tell the nation how he feels about these violent incidents, and then Sarah Sanders said, "The fact that you're basically accusing the president of being complicit in a school shooting is outrageous."
Oh.
Like, okay.
I do remember that, actually, now.
Yeah, like, that was kind of weird.
Ugh.
So.
But, I mean, the White House has done zero
I
things
know.
on school shootings, on gun violence, since Las Vegas.
Right.
Like, literally nothing. Like, they haven't even really, like, apart from, like, consoling the victims and visiting Las Vegas, like, the president hasn't done anything.
He hasn't done anything
on gun
before.
violence.
Well, we're too worried about the tax bill and the immigration legislation. Like, he's too worried about things because, like, he doesn't have an agenda. I think that's part of the problem. Like, he has a short-term agenda, but he doesn't have a long-term agenda. And so Congress has their own kind of, like, this is what we're going to do, but the president doesn't have an agenda. And so there's nothing to, like, so the Congress is going to pick up what it picks up, and that usually is driven in some small measure by the president's agenda. And where the president's two biggest things were tax reform and immigration. And the border wall, basically, which is wrapped up in immigration, and we're getting nowhere on either. Well, the tax
they
bill
got
passed,
the tax bill
but
passed.
he also had health care, but that failed miserably, so whatever.
Yes, that did.
But he doesn't have shootings. That's not on his. Plus, also, he's a Republican president, so that's a thing. So, I don't know. We'll see what happens on that. But for now, 11 shootings in 25 days, and that's, like, disappointing. Okay, so next on our list of things, Senator Duckworth, who serves from Illinois, it was one of the I states, I'm pretty sure it's Illinois. She is a double amputee who lost her legs in Iraq because she's a veteran from Iraq, and she is really quite an amazing woman. She, like, worked her way through getting a PhD in politics. Like, she just kind of have a small, very large woman crush on her because she's amazing. She announced this week that she is pregnant, and she's due later this spring with her second child. She will be the first senator to give birth while in office.
It's just, like, amazing to think, like, in the 200-plus year history of our country that, like, we haven't never had a sitting senator. We've had, like, sitting House members, but she's the first sitting senator.
Sitting senator.
It surprised me. I was like, wow, really?
Yeah. She's 49 years old, and she's been very open about her struggles to have children and miscarriages. And yeah, and she's super... she's super ready, like, she's super excited about it, and it's super awesome. Sweet. Because she also has a 2-year-old that she had while she was serving. She decided to run for Senate while she was out on maternity leave after having her child, and I think she had this child when she was serving as a representative. Okay. That brings me to another woman in power who is having a baby. The New Zealand Prime Minister announced that she's pregnant with her first child, and they weren't expecting it, but she says that she is happy to join the ranks of working mothers around the world. So she'll take off a short amount of time when the baby is born, and her second in command, I can't remember what deputy probably, it will take care of her responsibilities while that takes place, and then she'll be back at work. I think her it's not husband, they're not married. I think her partner will be more of a stay-at-home dad. So anyway, that's cool. The last thing is our international.
Will take us on a foreign moment.
So this week, Turkey aggressed against Syrian Kurdish forces right over the border. I don't know if I've made this very clear yet, but the relationship between Turkey and the Kurds is really, really fraught. Like, Turkey actually has the biggest concentration of Kurds, and so they're always worried about, like, a Kurdish uprising, and they're always worried about, like, the Kurds disrupting the global order that they live in, and so for them, it's a big deal that the United States is currently arming the Syrian Kurds in the fight against in the fight against ISIS. It's even a bigger deal because the Syrian Kurds are called the PKK, and in Turkey the PKK is labeled a terrorist organization by everyone, including the United States, right? So they say that they're a different faction, and we make justifications, and we also don't like to hear where, like, we're arming these people. We don't want to hear, like, what they're going to use them for. We just assume they're going to use them for ISIS. Like, don't tell us what you're going to use them for, because it's, in some ways, it's very clear that the weapons that we're giving them are going to be used in Turkey. Anyway, it's this whole big mess, but really what we're trying to do is arm one of the most effective fighting forces against ISIS, and we have people in very close proximity with other Syrian Kurdish forces. So that's all the background to this. So on Sunday night, Monday morning, Turkey started an assault on the Syrian city of Afrin, where Kurdish forces are, and they bombed them quite a bit, and then they sent in forces to fight. And so it's been this long kind of thing, and so it's even a bigger thing because Turkey is a NATO ally, and so, like, Turkey is attacking our allies.
That makes it so awkward.
Which makes it even more awkward. In addition, a friend and I were talking, and she's done a lot of research, and her friend has done a lot of research that indicates that in some ways it's very likely that Russia was acting as puppet master behind this, encouraging Turkey to aggress against the Syrian Kurds. So right now they're still kind of in this, like, gridlock position where we don't know what's going to happen, but the Kurdish-Turkish tensions have been a very big part of everything that's going to happen, has happened, and will happen in this region for some time to come. So that's definitely something to keep an eye on. Yeah. So were we going to talk about immigration?
Nah.
We'll leave immigration.
Too big of an issue.
Yeah.
We need to talk about it.
We'll leave immigration to next week because it is big. Know that currently the White House has put out a plan. It's pretty hard line, but it does account. It does give some pretty wide berths for dreamers. We'll see if Congress picks this up and if it can get support in the House and in the Senate. The Senate's going to be the bigger issue. The Senate's going to be harder. Yeah. Okay. The soapbox this week is all mine. So I was, surfing the web, as you do. And I don't remember how I came across these, but I somehow found out that some of the spring fashion shows were showing off thigh-high Ugg boots. Yes, you heard me correctly. Thigh-high Ugg boots. Like, why? Why? I will include a picture.
You really need to include a picture with this.
You need a picture. Because it's not just women's fashion. Like, Ugg boots, generally, women wear Ugg boots, and it's usually, like, I used to wear them when I wanted to be comfortable. Like, I didn't go very many places in Ugg boots, right? But...
Nor should you.
Nor should you, right. Because they're just, like, really nice, fluffy boots. They're furry, and, but... They're not really professional in any way. So they made thigh-high ones, and then they're not just for women, they're also for men. There were male models also wearing these with oversized, pretty much sweatshirts. Yeah, I think that's how I would describe it. And it was just, I don't even know what to say about it because it's just so terrible.
From the pictures that Brigitte showed me, and granted I have not looked into this as deeply as Brigitte has, but my quick hot take on this is they look like they're so, like, the fabric is, like, flowy and, like, it folds on itself and bundles up.
Because Ugg boots do that anyway.
It makes these models' legs look, like, really fat and flabby. Like, you look at them and it looks like they have, like, rolls in their legs, and it just looks disgusting. So, no thank you. But I mean, the fashion world has long issued praise from the common person, so I'm not surprised one bit that they're doing a crazy thing like this, because that is always what the fashion world does.
I don't understand.
Or you can just imagine a pair of drumsticks on your legs.
I don't. What Emily and I were talking about this. We don't understand the thigh-high boot craze anyway, so this just is like adding insult to injury.
Pretty much.
This is just terrible.
I think we all agree that they're ugly.
Well, that was bad, but also worth it. I just don't understand. And with that, dear listeners, we will leave you. I do not understand thigh-high Ugg boots.
Sayonara.